Hey, how's it going, guys? Today we are here with another tier list video for Pokemon TCG Pocket. This time we're going to be going through the fighting type Pokemon. So we have our usual three brackets. We have solid, mid, and this time we have pack it up, which again you can basically figure out what that is yourself. So let's get right into it. As usual, we're going to start from the bottom. So the first Pokemon that will be in the pack it up tier will be Dugtrio. So Dugtrio is a stage 1 Pokemon, so they evolve into 1 energy attached for 40 damage. Flip a coin if its heads during your opponent's next turn. Prevent all damage and effect of attacks done to this Pokemon. So it's okay. If it had better HP, I would put it in mid. But you're risking a lot for a Pokemon that only has 70 HP on a coin flip, and you're only doing 40 damage. Overall, I don't think it's great. I've said this a lot, but 40 damage is usually not enough for me for a stage 1, unless there's got to be something else really good with it that would convince me to bump it up. In this case, I don't think the coin flip is worth it, so I am putting it into the pack it up tier. The next Pokemon that's going to go into here is Marowak. Marowak is 1 energy for 40 damage, 100 HP, 1 retreat cost, and a stage 1 Pokemon. You know, it's got the similar problem as to Whimsicott in our previous video, and I just am not a big fan of 1 energy for 40 on stage 1. And yeah, it's got nothing else going for it, so it's in the pack it up tier. Next up we have Rhydon. Now Rhydon has the issue that it is also a stage 1. Takes 4 energy to attack, and has 120 HP. It's just too expensive. The 100 damage output is really good on the attack damage, but it's just too much energy for it, you know? And there's no good way to get the energy onto him. Overall, because there's poor acceleration for fighting, aside from Onyx and for Golem, it's just not worth it. You know, overall, it's going to be packed up and put in the bin. Similar to that, we have Menshao. I'm going to probably pronounce that Pokemon's name wrong. Stage 1, 40 damage for 1 energy, 80 HP. Not great. Same issue as Marowak, but except it's worse, it has less HP. You know, just probably not going to end up using it. And then we have Golem. I am torn. I don't know if this should be in mid or if it should be into pack it up. It's definitely not solid. I'll be nice today. I'll put this into mid. We're going to go into the mid tiers from here on. So, Golem, and I'll throw Onyx up here at the same time too, because they have the same thing going for it. They both benefit from the supporter card Brock, which allows you to attach a fighting energy card, a fighting energy from your energy pile onto either Golem or onto Onyx. Now the issue with Brock is that it's only to Golem, so you can't do it on Geodude or Graveler. So you have to get to Golem before you can start using the supporter card. So if you get it earlier in your hand, it's basically a brick. The other issue is it takes 4 energy to get its attack off. It does do a lot of damage. That's 4 energy. And it's not an easy task. And even then, even when you get all 4 energy onto him, you're still doing 50 damage to yourself. So if you have 160 on there, but if you want to attack, you're going to get knocked down to 110 anyway. And if you get damaged on the way up to Golem, because you're going to go and evolve, you know, right? So you're going from Geodude to Graveler to Golem. On that route, if you take damage, if you end up in a situation where you got 50 or less HP, you're getting the attack off and you're instantly KOing yourself. I don't know. Of course, in a perfect world, right? If you can get the energy onto him, you can get in the active. You don't have any damage on you. This guy's pretty good. But I don't know. And finally, he has a 4 retreat cost. So let's say you get gusted up to the active by a Sabrina or something like that, right? That means you're sitting there. If you don't have 4 energy on him, you're screwed. What do you do? I don't know. It's not great, and I wouldn't recommend it. I'm tempted to put it into pack it up, but it's gonna be in mid because it does have really good damage. Like 150 will KO most things. So I mean, if you do get the energy onto him, he could be decent. But I do not see it being a viable option. Similar to that, we have Onyx. 3 energy for 70 is not great. On a basic Pokemon, it is passable if you can get the energy on it reasonably. Onyx has the very, very good luxury of being one of the 2 Pokemon affected by Brock, the supporter card. So you can get energy on it reasonably. Now, do I think Onyx is the best guy you should put the energy on? No. If they ever release a Steelix, this guy could be pretty good. But Yeah, it's just not. It's just not it. It's not it, and I think it's barely hanging on there in mid. But that's where we'll put it. That's where I'm gonna have it. It's gonna be those two are gonna be the bottom of mid, but they're gonna be hanging out there. So let's get to the next one. Next one we have is Sand Slash. It is essentially the better version of Onyx. Stage 1, evolve into it. 2 energy for 70. It's just easier to get out. I think you're better off doing that than trying to get the 3 energy onto a basic guy. It's maybe you can if you're really focusing on using that Onyx, it could be okay, but you should have other options in your deck besides Onyx. 70 damage is not going to be enough in the long term if somebody pulls out a stage 2 or something like that, or they pull an EX Pokemon. Next, we have Hitmonchan. Now, Hitmonchan is, again, I've said it before, he's your Scyther, basically, of the fighting types. 80 HP, 1 energy, 30. Hit on the first turn, does okay damage. You probably pull him on the bench later. Maybe 2 turns he hangs out there, hits, and then you bring him back. He's okay. It's not amazing, but he's an okay Pokemon, which is why he's in the mid tier. And then fine, oh, we got 2 more here actually that I think will probably fit in there. We'll put Kabutops up next. Now Kabutops is interesting. He's got a decent HP at 140. He's got an attack called Leech Life that does 50 and then heals back the damage that he does to you. That means if he does a little bit less than 50 to the opponent Pokemon, you get a little bit less than 50 HP back, but he's still healing yourself. The problem here is that he's a stage 2, and he's fossil also on top of that, so it's even more tricky. But essentially, you gotta try and build him up to get to this point. Now, if you get him up there, he doesn't do enough damage. So if you're playing against like a deck that's playing essentially like a Charizard or a Blastoise or any Pokemon that has a decently high damage output that can KO him, your healing is not going to matter. This guy is good if you're playing against a person that has a bunch of basics, maybe a couple Hitmonchans or something in their deck, and that's their main way of attacking you. Because if they're not going over 50 damage, you're healing yourself back and you're going to win eventually over time from attrition. The problem is most decks will have an option if they're building it with any type of deck, I guess what's it called, deck strategy in mind. They're going to be doing more than 50 damage eventually. So, and by the time you get him out there, maybe that 50 HP heal is not going to be enough to justify it, which is why he's going to be mid. I could see it in the right circumstances, maybe he's all right, but I don't think he's worth putting in the solid tier. And the final card we're going to put in the mid tier, and I could be wrong about this, is going to be, I think his name is Cloptopus. I can never say his name. Or I'm sorry, Grappalop. We're just going to call him the Octopus guy. So the Octopus guy here, it's 3 energies for 70 damage, and then switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench, and then they choose their new active Pokemon. So this forces them out of the active, and then pull something else up. Now this can be very, very disruptive to your opponent. Have they been focusing on powering up their active the whole game? Or they just switched out of the active and they lost the energy and put something else up there and you swap them back out? This can really, really win you games. The problem here is it takes 3 energy to do it. But if you do set them up here, you could be very, very strong. And 70 damage for 3 is not nothing. So, and it's on a stage 1, so it's not too hard to reasonably get this guy out multiple games in a row when you're playing like online. So I think that he's pretty solid. I am tempted to put him higher, but for now I'm going to keep him where he is because I think the top of mid tier is a very fair spot for this guy. So let's move on to the high tiers. So the high tiers have one problem for me for fighting types, and that is that most of the high tiers I feel like are very close in how good they are. So let's kind of start off with Machamp EX. So Machamp EX is a very straightforward Pokemon. Stage 2 evolution, 180 HP, pretty high. 3 energy for 120 damage. Now, 120 damage for 3 energy it's strong. It's good. It's alright. It'll KO most stage 1s and maybe even some stage 2s depending on what they are. This could pair very well with like Giovanni to increase the damage a little bit. And it's not bad, but it's very okay. It's better than mid, but I don't necessarily know how high it up would be in the solid tier. Similar, and also keep in mind EX Pokemon, so you're risking the 2 prizer. course, you probably want to have the energy on him to pull back and swap out when you can, but I think he's solid. Similar boat to him is regular Machamp in stage 2, 3 energy for 100. So he is essentially the lower prize card, lower prize point risk for the fighting type Pokemon for stage 2. He's alright. 3 energy, 100 is alright, good damage. It's a bit rough on a stage 2, but you know, it's got a good HP at 150. I think they're both alright in the solid tier. Again, there's nothing that's overly outstanding for the solid tier for fighting at this point in time. And then we're gonna pull up Primeape, which again it's interesting, but it's situational. It has the attack Fight Back for 2 fighting energy, 40 damage, plus if this Pokemon has any damage on it, it does an additional 60 more damage, so possibly up to 100, with 90 HP as its maximum. So, if you get this guy out early in the game as Mankey, you take a little bit of damage, and then you evolve into Primeape, and then you attack, you could do a lot of damage to a lot of stuff, and usually one-shot anything that's a basic, and maybe even some stage 1s. And the question always comes into how much you're willing to risk. If you attack with them, if he has any energy, or they have any energy on their Pokemon at all, if they retaliate after that, you're probably gonna get KO'd. But it could be decent, which is why again it's in the solid tier. And now we're gonna get into the last two, which I think are probably the most interesting here. And I really don't like coin flips, but it's not terrible. So Marowak flip 2 coins, and then it does 80 damage for each heads. So you're gonna average out to 80 damage for 2 energy, not terrible, and you can high roll it to 160 if you get both good heads, or just get both 0. 140 HP is not bad. You risk the 2 prize card. Has a 1 retreat cost, so as long as you don't get KO'd, you can easily retreat back to the bench, reasonably. I think this guy is solid. I don't know if he is overly outstanding compared to the other types that we've seen in the game so far. For like water, fire, grass, I would say he is alright, and he is interesting enough that I could see him being played in a deck. And if you roll well on those coins, you flip those coins well, then he's really, really great, but you know, you just gotta hope you're lucky. And now for what I consider to be the most interesting and probably the best card, honestly, in all the fighting cards that we have listed here, it is Hitmonlee. It is not a high damage dealer. This is not what you're pulling this guy in there. You're pulling maybe a one copy of this guy in your deck when you're playing a fighting deck, and I would put him into almost every fighting deck, honestly. And the reason for that is because of a attack called Stretch Kick for 1 fighting energy. Really low investment, which I like. 1 single energy to pull this attack off. Does 30 damage to any of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So let me tell you let me lay out the scene for you here. You have Hitmonlee on your bench. You have Marowak EX in the active. Just an example. It can be anybody in the active. Marowak, he high rolls it. He hits 160. Then the opponent's Pokemon is on 10 HP. He sees that. He pulls him off the active into the bench, and then swings at your Marowak. Doesn't KO your Marowak. And then now his guy's in the back. What you do is you have this Hitmonlee, you play down, you pull him to the active, you put the 1 energy on him, and you snipe that guy in the bench, and you win the game off the prize cards, off the prize points. Situations like that will come up a decent amount. Situations where you just need a little bit more damage on the Pokemon to win the game. And having any Pokemon in your deck that can do that for a very low energy cost investment that doesn't need to evolve, that can be placed right onto the board, is really, really, really good. And for that reason alone, I think Hitmonlee is at the very top of the tier list for fighting, in my opinion. Just because it's the only guy that has that option. There are other Pokemon that can do that, but usually it's like Evolve, or it's a lot higher energy investment. This guy's such low investment, such low cost. If you're playing a fighting deck, I would highly recommend throwing this guy in there. But anyway, that's my view, that's my opinion, and this has been my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Please comment if you feel differently about any of the placements. If you feel something should be higher, something should be lower, let me know. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Catch you later. Peace.